out on the show before, I don't think that there's enough awareness amongst the American people for how big of a problem this is. And so I put it on all of you, the listeners of the Run Your Mouth podcast, sit down this holiday season, do some self-reflection, and really look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself if you're doing enough to keep the retarded kids in your neighborhood safe from the FBI. I'm sure you know that one kid who's walking around in the afternoon, and are you keeping an eye on him to make sure that FBI agents don't go, ooh, there's a sucker. There's someone I can entrap. There's someone I can promise of tales of glory. And I don't even remember what the last storyline was. I do remember I went off on the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping thing, and that entire thing looked like entrapment of a bunch of dorks sitting around in a basement drinking and pretending like they're part of a cool gang, and then some FBI is like, oh, I'm really handsome. You guys want to get chicks like I get chicks? You can go find that one. That was back in the shed back in the day. I'm wearing a stupid military helmet. I'm going to have to go down the Run Your Mouth archive, maybe talk to Andrew, who runs my website, robbernsteincomedy.com, and go through the transcripts and find the other instant of a retarded kid who was entrapped and then framed by the FBI for crimes. But it's on all of us to spread the word this holiday season and to let people with children of mental disabilities know that their children are at risk for being patsies for FBI crimes. And so we've all been wondering what actually happened on January 6th. What was the level of government involvement? To what extent were they trying to sell a domestic terrorism storyline to remove all of our freedoms? And just last week, they finally apparently found the guy who was involved with the pipe bombings, and it was just because the Biden administration and the Biden and the FBI were so bad at police work that finally the new FBI could just look at the information and crack that case wide open. And so here is Thomas Massie. It's a long tweet thread, but I believe that it is worth reading. I'm going to walk a little closer to the computer so I can actually read it. You guys can look at the blank logo of Run Your Mouth right here while I go over there and just and read the thing. Or, maybe I'll pivot the camera. We'll pivot the camera to the old school Run Your Mouth banner and get a closer. Let's see if that works. All right, yeah. Side panel view. All right, I like this. You guys can see my big Jew nose as I get closer and I read this. Is that working? All right. Last night, I received a disclosure from a new FBI whistleblower regarding the January 6th bomb case. This is the third disclosure I've received from current and former employees of the government regarding the pipe bomb case in recent weeks. These brave, moral people could lose their jobs and wreck their careers, but they care deeply for our country. So, at the risk of editorializing, I will summarize what I learned from this newest disclosure in order not to disclose the identity of this whistleblower. The community where the suspect was arrested is populated with several employees of the FBI, Secret Service, and police. Many of them have observed the suspect on walks over the years. He wanders around his neighborhood several times a day while walking a dog. Other than walking his dog, he doesn't engage in any activities outside of his home. He does not interact with anyone. He doesn't wave or acknowledge other people or even say hello. He doesn't even look at other people when he walks by. He appears to live in his own world. All right, let's continue. Now's when it's going to start getting juicy, and let's try not to fall over all the equipment here. And then we'll go, we'll take some comments and see what you guys think of this crazy FBI storyline. All right. He's never, actually, you know what? We'll just take a peek at the comments. You guys can be like, oh, he just lost all of the sound. All right, I didn't lose all the sound when I walked over there. Look at that. You can walk with your microphone and not lose all the sound, and you can pretend like you got two camera angles in the studio. All right, he's never been observed walking around in an angry or agitated state. His demeanor is detached and vacant. He's always worn headphones when walking around the neighborhood. It's possible that he's using headphones to drown out any surrounding noises. He doesn't appear to be interested in anything or even get interested in things that are happening around him. His behavior is awkward. It's obvious he has a mental disability. You guys catch that? That's the important part. And likely lives in a permanently vulnerable intellectual and emotional state. It's well known that individuals with mental conditions are susceptible to providing inaccurate and unwarranted confessions. He doesn't drive his car very often. Based on the observation of several neighbors, the suspect does not appear to have the mental acumen to plan, prepare, and execute a complex bombing plot by himself. On November 13th, the FBI conducted a surveillance operation on the suspect's street, but the surveillance was easily identifiable to many in the area. All right, so if you're not following, you've got FBI people living in a neighborhood, realizing they got a retarded kid there, and being like calling up the other FBI agents, like, hey, are we still looking for a guy that we can pin this on? Because I got some retarded kid in my neighborhood, and no one seems to care that he's here. I feel like we could blame it on him. It's, allegedly. All right, and now here comes the most damning evidence of that this would seem to have not actually been a person that the FBI would have been threatened by. And so here's the last piece of information on this. Not only were neighbors not evacuated during the arrest in search of the alleged bomber's home, they were required to remain in their homes if the suspect had in fact been engaged in making bombs and stockpiling bomb materials. The proper safety precautions were not taken. My personal conclusion, the FBI disclosing this information to me doesn't believe the FBI has arrested a person who's capable or motivated or even interested enough in affairs outside of his own small world to execute the J6 bomb plot on his own. And so there you have it. Thomas Massie, best of the best, even if it's just to engage in interesting conspiracies and to raise more awareness of that retarded kids in your neighborhood might be at risk of falling prey or being preyed on by the FBI and either being entrapped into crimes or used as patsy for crimes, particularly, I guess, if they can link you to supporting Donald Trump, which is odd coming from Kash Patel. But I'll put it to you guys. How many of you guys were buying the storyline that after all these years, this conservative who contested the election and also happens to be either mentally handicapped and black was actually the person who did it? But, bless Thomas Massie. The guy actually works in government, and even if that is just pure conspiracy, to be in Congress and be spinning tales like that and raising skepticism of the government and awareness that kids in your area could be at risk for being entrapped by the FBI, even if he's dead wrong, I'll still give credit for it. All right. Let's take some comments here. Robbie, when are you bringing the porch tour to Australia? No such plans. I think if anything next year, we're going to be consolidating the porches, not venturing farther for porches. But we'll see. Now that we're an algorithm-friendly show, who knows? Maybe we'll be selling out stadiums and arenas and porching giant lawns and turning every single day of the weekend into Woodstock in random locations. And we already do have an official Porch Tour caravan, which is Max, the OG Porch, has bought the first RV for the people who will be following the tour. And so, it's we're if you'll build it, a couple people might show up to a lawn type mentality. And it's looking like next year Porch Tour will probably be consolidated. But now that we're becoming algorithm friendly, who knows? Maybe we'll make it all the way to Australia. TY5020. When they bring in Obama for Russiagate, when they taking down health officials for COVID, does the FBI need to go because of Jan 6 or revelations, or just certain employees of the FBI? I could settle for either. Poet Fisherman. Obviously, the FBI's narrative is horseradish. I got to be honest, I kind of like horseradish. I think you mean horse shit. I'd be okay with horse shit. I know you're trying to keep it algorithm friendly, but I'm just saying let's not disparage horseradish and compare it to the FBI. Horseradish is great. Actually, horseradish is a good sign that a restaurant knows what they're doing. Now, if it's like a horseradish sauce, then it's a little more borderline because we're adding the mayo to it. It's kind of like cheating. But like typically speaking, if you see like some sort of like beef or meatball thing and they're offering like some sort of like a horseradish on it, you know that they know what they're doing. All right. So while I agree with where you're coming from, and I even like the way that you're trying to groove with our new, more algorithm-friendly atmosphere, and so you didn't want to use the word horse shit, I'm just saying let's not disparage horseradish. All right? It's best to assume anytime they say anything it's a lie or contains heavy spin for narrative control. All right, horsey sauce from Arby's? No, that's you might as well eat your friend's cum on your sandwich. If you were trying to figure out what's more disgusting, firstly, Arby's meat tastes like somebody else's boogers. Okay, I don't remember ever tasting anyone else's boogers. I remember once as a kid tasting mine because I was like, why are these other kids eating their boogers? Like, this is the grossest thing ever, and never did again learn that lesson. But I learned it again when I went to Arby's, and I'm like, that's the first time I've tasted something that tasted slimy and salty like that since that time when I was 7 years old and I tried my boogers. And the horsey sauce to go with it is just doubling down on consuming the most disgusting thing available in this country. Runaway Slav, fresh grated horseradish helps clear sinuses and works better than ivermectin. All right, that's talk about a not algorithm friendly comment, but you're endorsing horseradish, so I will agree with you on that. Mike Tucker, BPG, blah, blah, blah. Fresh horseradish and a bit of A1 mixed is worth a try. Just saying. All right, I've never tried that, but I do see what you're going for. I'd like further clarification on what you're putting that on. All right, here's another just quick story. So